do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on Twitter, __ Jonathan Smith, if you want to follow me there. Maybe you're watching, let me think, where else? Oh, maybe you're listening via that Indy Sports Ticket app. That's the one that I'm supposed to mention. We got a lot to get to today. Kevin Potts is going to join the show at 11 o'clock to talk about the 2025 NFL Draft quarterback prospects. So a lot of stuff on that today. I'm going to give you my thoughts on all of them as well coming up here in about 20 minutes or so. Before we get to that, though, the Indiana Pacers are hosting the Hornets tonight. And for some reason, Pacers just can't seem to beat the Hornets. I don't know why. The Hornets are terrible. But every time the Pacers seem to play the Hornets, we are reminded of how the Pacers don't beat bad teams. And tonight, it's a double whammy for the Indiana Pacers. Not only are they playing a bad team, but they're also playing a team that is sitting a lot of its players because the Hornets are currently trying to capture the flag. That's what we're calling tanking this year because everyone wants that number 1 overall pick so that they can draft Cooper Flag. And the Pacers struggle to beat teams that are sitting players and that are bad. And the Hornets are very much both of those things. I do have some good news for you, though. Benedict Mathurin and Miles Turner didn't play Monday night against the Sacramento Kings. Miles Turner was sick. Mathurin has got some little contusion or whatever. He's fine. Mathurin and Miles Turner have both been upgraded to questionable for tonight after not playing on Monday, which is good. Now, the Pacers are fine without Benedict Mathurin, but they need Miles Turner. I know that there are plenty of Pacer fans who, for some reason, are not fans of Miles Turner, even though Miles Turner brings a lot of value to the Pacers. He makes them so much better, especially this year, because they don't have a real center without him. Thomas Bryant, love him. The dude plays hard. He boxes out. He goes after every rebound. He's a decent shooter. He's got good hands. He can finish on the block if he's open. Plays hard. But he's not the size of a real NBA center. He's listed as 6'10", but there's no way that dude is actually 6'10". Okay? He looks like a power forward, not a real center. Okay? Like that's what he looks like. And then you can really see it whenever he stands beside any real center. Okay? That's just the reality of it for Thomas Bryant. So I like Thomas Bryant. I know the Indiana fans here in the States love the fact that a former Hoosier's playing for the Pacers, and especially a guy like Thomas Bryant, who plays his butt off every night, which I will always appreciate from every NBA player because it's littered with dudes who don't play their butts off every single night. So love Thomas Bryant, but he's not a real center. He's not, okay? Miles Turner gives the Pacers a real 7-footer. He gives them legitimate rim protection on the back end of the defense. I know he gets crap because he's not a great rebounder. I have a question, though, because I think he's a better rebounder than a lot of people, and he is so important to the Indiana Pacers when it comes to their ability to rebound. Have you seen this team try to rebound when Miles Turner doesn't play? Because it is brutal. He's missed 9 games this year. And the 9 games that he didn't play, the Indiana Pacers were out-rebounded in every single one of those games except for 2 of them. They were out-rebounded by 10 or more twice. They got out-rebounded by 20. 20! That's insane. In one of the games that he missed this season. So in 33% 33% of the time when Miles Turner does not play, the Indiana Pacers get out rebounded by 10 or more. They need Miles Turner's size because they just don't have a lot of it. They need his rebounding. They need his rim protection. And most importantly, the Pacers need Miles Turner's depth in the front court. I think Ridger over in our YouTube chat says it perfectly. If you want to participate in the YouTube chat, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe, Ridger chiming in saying Miles isn't a great rebounder, but he's a solid rebounder. I think that is exactly right. He's not going to average 13 rebounds a year. He's going to get you somewhere between 8 and 10. Solid rebounder, not a great one. And when you're in this Pacers team, needs as many solid rebounders as they can get. Now, the other guy who has been upgraded to questionable, Benedict Mathurin, a guy who I am liking less and less. Former number 6 overall pick. There are certainly things to like about him. I love his demeanor. That dude's tough. That dude is competitive. He is not afraid of the moment. He plays hard, and I will always respect and appreciate NBA players who play hard every single night. But Benedict Mathurin leaves something to be desired. He does. When he plays, he doesn't move the ball. The ball just like he catches it, and it's like he's got. Have you seen Little Giants? There's the scene where the kid who can't catch dips his hands in like tar or something to make his hands all sticky. But then when they go to break the huddle, he claps his hands and then his hands are stuck together and he can't pull them apart. That's what I feel like Mathurin puts on his hands before every offensive possession. Because when he catches the basketball, it is not moving. It's not moving. Like he's going to have to take his time, figure out if he can score or not, and then the ball will move again. And I like his ability to score one-on-one. Like he can bail you out, and we've seen him do it a decent amount this year. And that is a nice luxury to have. A guy who you can give the ball with 6 seconds left on the shot clock and say, hey, man, bad possession. Can you please bail us out? Benedict Mathurin has the skill sets to do that, which is good. But because of that, he ruins the offense at times. He completely blows it up by holding the basketball for too long. If he didn't play tonight, I'd be fine with it. I thought the offense against the Sacramento Kings looked better without him because the ball just popping, moving. Okay, and I'm not anti-isolation basketball. It is part of the NBA. It's part of why I enjoy the NBA, actually. I mean, and the Pacers aren't either. Like, we see them create a space for Pascal Siakam to isolate consistently. You know, they'll run a play where he'll come up and he'll catch the ball 12 to 15 feet from the basket, and he can post up or face up. And, like he's, a very good one-on-one scorer. But it's different with Pascal Siakam than it is with Benedict Mathurin. When Pascal Siakam isolates and he catches the ball at the elbow, it feels like it's within the flow of the offense. It doesn't feel clunky. It doesn't feel like everyone else just stopped. It feels like this possession was clearly designed for Pascal Siakam to go one-on-one and get a bucket. With Benedict Mathurin, though, there are just too many possessions where he just doesn't feel that way. It feels like he ad-libs a little bit too much. He stops the offense to assess whether or not he can score on his guy. It takes him 5 seconds to do that. Then he either tries to score or he starts to move the ball again. And the issue is, obviously, when you stop the ball for that long, like the ball has lost all momentum. The defense resets, and then you look up and there's 7 seconds left on the shot clock, and someone is now having to bail the Pacers out. And it's annoying because the Pacers are at their best when the ball moves. And what's even more annoying is the two best players on this Indiana team, Pascal Siakam and Tyrese Halliburton, are incredibly willing to move the ball, to allow other players to get shots. And then you have this guy in Benedict Mathurin, who is at best the fourth best player on the roster, being like, no, guys, let me catch it. Let me hold it here for a minute. Okay, here, all right, I'm good. Here you go. I like Mathurin. He's tough. He's physical. He's an improving defensive player, but he's just not good enough to justify stopping the flow of the offense as much as he does. It is incredibly annoying. So if he didn't play tonight, I really wouldn't be all that torn up about it. Decent chance that the Pacers could trade him here at some point as well, potentially as soon as this offseason. How he performs in the playoffs will undoubtedly impact how they kind of assess that. Staying in the NBA, I'm going to keep doing this. Probably not every day, but most days around the association. It's mostly just going to be one sentence on every game that happened last night, but there's 3 games that I'm going to take a little more than a sentence to talk about. So the first game of the night, Trailblazers, Hawks, 2 young teams. I like some of these pieces. Like the Trailblazers have some good young players between, former number 3 overall pick Scoot Henderson and Shaden Sharp and Denny Avdija, Donovan Clingan, Anthony Simon can go and get you a bucket as well. They're not very good, but they're fun. They have some good, solid young players, and you can see a future with them. Hawks, the exact same thing. Okay, Dyson Daniels potentially going to be the defensive player of the year this year, which is rare for a guard to win that award. Zachary Richache, the number 1 overall pick from the most previous NBA draft. Jalen Johnson was great before he got hurt. Okongwu is going to play in the NBA for a long time because he's a big athletic center who can block shots and catch lobs. Okay, so good young pieces in that game. That was fun to watch. 76ers versus Knicks. The 76ers are ready for the season to end, and the Knicks are ready for the playoffs. That was pretty evident in watching that game. Okay, the 76ers have had the second worst season in the NBA this year, only behind the Dallas Mavericks. Like the 76ers have just had all these injuries. It's not looking great. What's going to happen to, Embiid? What are they going to do with him? They just look like they're ready to be done. And then you've got Jalen Brunson, who isn't quite back yet, but he should be back here soon. Suns Bucks. This is the first game that I'm probably going to take a little more time on. I'm watching the game last night. No Kevin Durant. He sprained his ankle. Suns trying to get in the play-in. Bucks trying to earn that 5th seed so they can play the Pacers in the first round. And I'm watching the game last night because I was like legitimately interested in this one. And I walked away from the game, and I had to ask the question, is Giannis underrated? I know the answer is no, but he's just not talked about enough because the Bucks are probably going to wind up being the 6th seed. But he's still a top 5 player in the world. He plays hard. He brings it every single night. He gets better every season. He had 37 points, 6 rebounds, 11 assists last night. Like the guy has improved as a passer. Love Giannis. Not hopefully, because they're in the Pacers division, but the NBA is more fun when the superstars have like legitimately good teams, and hopefully the Bucks can at some point figure out a way to surround Giannis with some better talent. That way they're not a 6 seed. Magic Spurs, a lack of everything makes everything hard. A lack of offense makes everything difficult in the NBA. Really, basketball in general. I talk about this all the time about college basketball. If you play games in, the 60s, then you have a chance to get beat every single night because every team in college basketball is capable of scoring more than 60 points. Same is true in the NBA. If you're consistently scoring in like the 120s, 130s, you're going to be tough to beat. And if you don't do that, if you're scoring, somewhere between 100 and 110 points a night, you're much more likely to lose. And that's who the Orlando Magic are. They really remind me a lot of Houston in college basketball. Like they have 2 guys who can score and create. Everyone else outside of that really feels like they're just there to play some defense. Okay, and in the NBA, it's really tough to win like that. Raptors Bulls, that game wasn't close. You don't want to hear my thoughts on that. Warriors Grizzlies, I hope you watched. I hope you did. If you have a buddy that likes the NBA, I hope that buddy of yours pulled out his phone and texted you and said, hey, Steph Curry's having one of those nights. you should turn it on. He had 52 points, 10 assists, 10 rebounds and 8 assists last night. And he's just doing it in every way possible. And it's just incredible. Like to watch him come off these screens and catch the basketball and then just see the entire Memphis Grizzlies team panic. Like there has never been a player in the history of the NBA that strikes as much fear into the heart of their opponents as soon as they catch it as Steph Curry. You know, LeBron James, great player. Obviously, when he catches the ball, the entire defense looks at him, and they should, right? Because he's, in my opinion, the second best basketball player ever. But when he catches it, you're like, he's going to survey the floor, look to pass. Nothing's open. He might post up. He might take someone off the dribble. He might call for a screen. But like, I have time to like get out there and like set my defense before he attacks. Same thing with Michael Jordan. The terrifying thing about Steph Curry is that as soon as he catches it, half a second later, the ball can be out of his hands, on his way, and you have surrendered 3 points. And he had one of those nights last night. He hit 12 threes. 12. Absurd. I just did not. It was just an incredible performance. Warriors won a game. They now have the 5th seed, and they're currently in position to avoid the play-in game out west. Last game of the night. Probably can't see, but I got some bags under my eyes. I was up late watching the double overtime game between the Timberwolves and the Nuggets that had a final score of 140 to 139. Russell Westbrook, as much as I love that dude, has this stretch where he misses a fast break layup, which would have put the Nuggets up by 3. He also could have just dribbled it out and taken another, 4 or 5 seconds off the clock. There wasn't much time left. Instead, he opts for the layup. He misses it. Timberwolves come back down. They hit Nickeil Alexander-Walker in the corner. And Russell Westbrook fouls a 3-point shooter. Nickeil Alexander-Walker goes to the line, hits 2 free throws, and the Timberwolves win what can only be described as one of the best games you'll see in the NBA all year. I love college basketball. March has been a fantastic time. The best college basketball game will not live up to what we got from Timberwolves and Nuggets last night. And I say that with confidence because I just saw Nikola Jokic have a 60-point triple-double. 60 points or 62 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists. Just an insane performance. It was. And it's so frustrating watching the Nuggets because this should be the easiest team in the world to build. Hey, like let's just grab a bunch of guys who can shoot and play defense, and we'll put Jokic in the middle and just let him be Jokic, and we're going to win a whole bunch of games, and we're going to score a whole bunch of points, and it's going to be awesome. But instead, the Nuggets like, you know what we're going to do instead? We're going to grab guys who can like kind of play defense and can't shoot at all. Like, we're going to make this as difficult as possible on Jokic, and we're still potentially going to come away with the 3 seed. He was nothing short of incredible last night. He should win the MVP. He should. He won't because of voter fatigue and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's having just a wonderful, wonderful season out there in Oklahoma City. But man, like you watched that game last night and you're just like, yeah, like this is why he's the best player in the world. He can get wherever he wants. He can make every pass. He can make every shot. And he just had one of those nights. And, I'm assuming he won't forget it. He won't. Speaking of unforgettable nights, the NFL draft is a little over three weeks away. It's 3 weeks from tomorrow. So we're going to start ramping up the NFL draft coverage here a little bit on the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Kevin Potts is going to join the show at 11 to talk about the draft, more specifically to talk about the quarterbacks. Before he does, though, I want you clear on where I stand with all these quarterbacks. And there's one guy in particular that people are talking about that I'm just not quite sold on. And then there's 2 guys that I really, really like. And then we'll get into some of the lesser guys as well. We're going to get into NFL draft, NFL quarterback prospects when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
The best takes. Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on Twitter, __ Jonathan Smith, if you want to follow me there, or maybe you're listening via that Indy Sports Ticket app. You can also hear me on the Dan Dockett Show from noon to 3 every day. And if that's not enough for you, you can also check out my other YouTube page, My Take Is. Anyway, NFL Draft, it's about 3 weeks away. And quarterbacks. What do we think? What do I think? And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to run through the 5 quarterbacks that I think people are actually interested in the order of which I think they will be picked. So we have to start with Cam Ward, the definite number 1 overall pick. If Cam Ward doesn't go first overall, I will be very surprised. Now, it may not necessarily be to the Tennessee Titans. I think that it will, but you never know with this kind of stuff. So Cam Ward, coming off a year where he was a 5th-year senior, he started 57 games in college, 2 at Incarnate Word and FCS school, 2 at Washington State, and another at Miami. He's experienced. He is dynamic. He has succeeded in multiple offensive schemes, which matters to me. If I'm drafting a quarterback, I want to know that he's flexible. I want to know that his skill set translates and that I don't have to run a very specific offense for him. Okay, he put up numbers everywhere. Put up numbers at Incarnate Word, at Washington State, and then last year he put up his best numbers at Miami. In 3 different offenses, he just showed up and succeeded and won games. And he didn't just exceed. Like he dominated. Here are his numbers from college, right? So in the 2 seasons that he spent at Incarnate Word, he threw for 6,900 yards. Nice. 71 passing touchdowns and only threw 14 interceptions. He won the Jerry Rice Award his freshman year, was a finalist for the Walter Payton Award as a sophomore. He then transfers to Washington State in 2022, plays 2 seasons there, started all 25 games, threw for 6,900 yards again, 48 touchdowns, 16 interceptions. He also ran for 13 touchdowns. And then he was going to come out and be drafted last year, but he was given a day 2 or 3 draft grade. So he goes back to school, goes to Miami, where he wins the ACC Player of the Year, ACC Offensive Player of the Year, after throwing for 4,300 yards, 39 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and rushing for 200 yards and 4 touchdowns. Also, he was named to first team All-ACC. This dude has a resume that's pretty freaking good, which I like, because there is this trend of quarterbacks now coming into the NFL where the more experience they have, the more successful they tend to be. Think Bo Nix last year. Think Jaden Daniels last year as well. Both guys played a lot of college football. They show up, and they just kind of get it immediately. My thing with Cam Ward that I really like the trait that pops, I love his poise. Love his poise. He's always very relaxed. He doesn't get rattled. Sometimes he's so relaxed that it appears that he just doesn't care. And that can come off as a bad thing. I personally think that it's a good thing. Quarterback is a hectic position, to say the least, between, deciphering defenses. You've obviously got your coach in your ear, so you're trying to figure out what he's telling you, and you're also trying to figure out what the defense is going to do, and then you got to check to run or pass, and then you have to change. There's just a lot going on whenever you play quarterback in the NFL. And so having a guy who's pretty calm is important. He can also legitimately throw the football. He is an athlete. He's athletic. He can extend plays. He can do all the fun stuff. He can make the off-platform throws. But you can't win in the NFL if you don't succeed from the pocket. Cam Ward can do that. He's like, you don't throw for as many yards in college as he did if you can't win from the pocket. Okay, and part of why he's good from there is because he's poised, right? He puts good touch on his passes. He can make that throw over the linebacker and in front of the safety, something we haven't seen in Indianapolis, the last few years. But the issue with him is when he rears back and he really tries to sling it and he really tries to put some velo on it, the accuracy can waver a little bit in those spots. All in all, though, he seems like he's going to, at a minimum, be a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL. He's got a good arm. He's accurate. He can move. He can do everything that you need him to do. Next guy, Shedeur Sanders. The experts make him sound like he's a risk, but I just don't see it. I think this guy's going to be really good. I'm very much on the record about saying that I think Shedeur Sanders is going to be an excellent NFL quarterback. And part of that is because of the success that we saw him have, in college. So he starts his career at Jackson State, plays for his dad, NFL Hall of Famer Deion Sanders, leads Jackson State to a 23-3 record in his 2 seasons there. He holds the single-season school record in passing touchdowns with 40 and the record for completions in a season with 344. Finishes his career at Jackson State with 6,900 passing yards, 70 passing touchdowns, and only 14 interceptions. Then, Deion Sanders gets hired at Colorado. He transfers with him. 2023, that first year where he's starting, at a Power 5 school, he finishes the year with 3,200 passing yards, 27 touchdowns, and only 3 interceptions. Played 11 games, misses the last game of the season with a fracture in his back. And then last year, he just upped it. He got better. Named the Big 12 Player of the Year. Finished the season with 4,100 passing yards, 37 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. Also ran for 4 touchdowns as well. I love watching this guy play quarterback. He reminds me a ton of Baker Mayfield. And Baker Mayfield is a starting caliber quarterback. Can you win a Super Bowl with Baker Mayfield as your starting quarterback? Probably not. But I do think there's a lot of similarities between these two guys, right? Baker was this tough guy coming out of Oklahoma. Shedeur Sanders is the definition of tough. He'll take any hit he has to. He'll step into it when he knows it's coming, and he'll rip the ball while he's being hit. That is my absolute favorite thing about him, because you're going to get hit in the NFL by some 400-pound, or 300-pound defensive tackle, and you have to be willing to step into those hits and let it rip. Okay, it is a requirement in the NFL to be able to do that. It also, I think, earns the respect of your teammates, which is a very important thing, especially when you're a young quarterback who's never done anything in the NFL. So that is my favorite thing about Shedeur Sanders. That dude is tough. And I'm assuming that NFL teams and players will appreciate that. The thing about Shedeur Sanders, though, I don't think he does anything great in terms of like physically. He doesn't do anything great. He's a good athlete, but not a great one. He's accurate, but he's not, like if he stood 20 yards away from a door, he'd get at the door. But he couldn't hit the keyhole, if that makes sense. Okay, so he's accurate, but he's not like supremely accurate. Not a great arm, but it's good. There's a lot of good physically, but there's no great, which sounds a lot like Baker Mayfield. When Baker Mayfield came out of Oklahoma, there was a lot of good, but no great. Okay, and like Baker Mayfield coming out of Oklahoma, there's 2 downsides with Shedeur Sanders. First one, I'm not worried about. The first one is his arrogance. Baker Mayfield was an arrogant guy coming out of college. Shedeur Sanders, he is arrogant. But I ask a question. What 23-year-old millionaire with a deal that has NIL deals with Mercedes-Benz and Nike that's about to get drafted into the NFL wouldn't be arrogant? The answer is very few. And that should not be a deterrent from drafting him. He's going to grow out of it. His dad is Deion Sanders, who I'm sure is going to give him a lesson on how to fit in an NFL locker room, even though I don't think that Shedeur Sanders is going to struggle with that at all. The other thing I'm not really worried about either. Shedeur Sanders took a ton of sacks at Colorado. He tied the FBS high with 42 sacks last season. and he finished second in 2023 with 52 sacks. I don't know who got sacked more than him, but I feel bad for them. Can we remember that the offensive line that he played behind both years wasn't very good? It wasn't. Sure, he may hold the ball too long, and you would like for him to eventually be like, you know what? I'm getting hit a lot. I should probably try to get rid of the ball uh, just a little bit quicker. Okay, I'm sure that that's something that NFL teams want him to do. But even behind a terrible offensive line, he still put up insane numbers. And this is something that NFL teams can fix. They are allowed to build a good offensive line and put it in front of him and allow him to, stand behind that. Like, imagine how much better he would have been if he'd had a good offensive line. Probably a whole lot better, as far as I'm concerned. We got 3 more quarterbacks to get to. The next one on the list, he's going to get someone fired. I guarantee it. I'll tell you who that is when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Come on in to Total Wine & More. Prices much lower than a grocery store. Spirits, wine, beer for a whole lot less. Walking down the aisles makes you stop and say, yes! From mixing cocktails to a friendly get-together, Total Wine has everything you need, and more. With the lowest prices and best selection for over 30 years, you'll always find what you love and love what you find. Only at Total Wine & More.
Drink responsibly, B21.
Hey, Green Gobbler here. So you've got a clogged drain in your bathroom. Water in the sink's overstaying its welcome. You're spitting today's toothpaste on top of yesterday's toothpaste. You hope that it go away. Yeah, clogs don't just go away. I make them go away. I'm Green Gobbler, the only clog dissolver you need. I'm bleach-free, safe for your pipes, and I work. Guaranteed or your money back. Because I never met a clog that was going to unclog itself. Green Gobbler. Let the gobbler get it.
The best takes, stories, and entertainment. It's The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket. 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
Welcome back to The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Hopefully you guys are having a nice week. It's Wednesday. Oh, man. I love Wednesdays. I also love it when Kevin Potts comes on the show, as he said to do here in about 20 minutes. We'll continue to talk about the upcoming NFL draft, and more specifically, the quarterbacks in that draft. We'll obviously talk Colts as well, because we're in Indianapolis, and we have to talk about the Colts. I mean, come on now. But we're going to continue talking quarterbacks. Before break, I said that there's a quarterback in this draft class that is going to get someone fired. And his name is Jackson Dart. Here is his background. He's a senior, former four-star guy from Utah, right? Starts his career at USC, but transfers to Ole Miss when USC hired Lincoln Riley. So he starts 12 games for Ole Miss his sophomore year, or his first year with the team. Throws for a little under 3,000 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. Only completed 62% of his passes, but he also ran for like 600 yards and a touchdown. Like, this is a real dual threat guy. Finishes the 2023 season with 3,300 passing yards, 23 touchdowns, and only 5 interceptions in 13 starts. He got better. He also ran for a little under 400 yards and 8 touchdowns. Okay, led Ole Miss to its first 11-win season in school history. Last year, he set single-season highs in passing yards with 4,200 yards, which was third in all of college football. He threw 29 passing touchdowns while running for a little under 500 yards and 3 touchdowns. Okay, he was also named to first-team All-SEC. And the reason why I say Jackson Dart is going to get someone fired this year is because he is the biggest riser in this NFL draft class. And this happens every year. There's a guy who shoots up the boards. Last year, it was Bo Nix. It seems like it's worked out well for the Broncos, but I remember when they took him at 12, I mean, you'd have thought that they did something illegal. Bo Nix, 12? What? That doesn't make sense. Why would you take Bo Nix at 12? You could have gotten him at 20 or something, you know. All that stuff came out, and then Sean Payton's like, I see a lot of Patrick Mahomes in this guy. And everyone was like, whoa, it's a bit much for me. Okay, and I think Jackson Dart is going to be that guy this year. You know, we start with Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders as the only 2 quarterbacks that should be drafted in the first round, to now Jackson Dart maybe sneaks in there. And that move will get some poor general manager and head coach that he hired fired if this winds up happening. Now, there's a lot to like about Jackson Dart. I like Jackson Dart. And he played at Ole Miss. He put up crazy numbers. He himself is crazy. Anyone who plays for Lane Kiffin is immediately labeled as crazy as far as I'm concerned. He throws the football well. He's another passer in this draft class who layers the ball well. He's athletic. He's not sneaky athletic. I know that's usually what we say about white guys, but he is legitimately athletic. Okay, he can really run. He can extend plays with his legs. He's tough. Shows no fear whenever, defensive tackles and edge rushers are bearing down on him. He's going to stand in the pocket, and he's going to let that thing rip. It's awesome. I love quarterbacks who do that, if you can't tell. My favorite thing about him, though, is how aggressive he is when he throws the football. He wants to push the ball down the field. He's going to challenge defensive backs to make plays. If there's a tight window, he thinks he can make the throw. Sometimes he can't, but he did a lot during his time at Ole Miss. And that is what the best quarterbacks in the NFL can do. Every quarterback in the NFL can dink and dunk and throw every quarterback except for the guy we have here in Indianapolis. They can hit the check down. They can throw the slant route. They can throw the drag. But the real quarterbacks who actually make a difference when there's 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter and everyone in the stadium knows that they're throwing the football. You know what Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Tom Brady and the great quarterbacks that we've seen throughout the history of the NFL, do you know what all of them would do in those moments? Peyton Manning as well. All right. It's 3rd and 7. We need a first down here. And there's a guy running, like a 10-yard dig. And there's, there's a window the size of a coffee cup. And the best quarterbacks in the history of the NFL make that throw. They are aggressive. They don't throw it short of the sticks. That's one of my biggest issues with Kirk Cousins, as cool as that guy is. Like, they let it rip. You have to be aggressive as a quarterback in the NFL if you want to succeed. You have to look to push the ball down the field. And Jackson Dart is more than willing to do that. And he's tough, and he's a competitor, which everyone likes. He has his flaws, though. He's not super big. He doesn't have, a rocket arm. It's a good arm, but it's not a rocket arm. He struggles when his footwork breaks down. Like, he's not going to make some of those off-platform throws where his feet are all out of whack that you'll see Cam Ward out of Miami make. And part of that's because he doesn't have the arm strength to do it. So he also, like I said, he struggles when his footwork gets all out of whack. So I think he's a guy who can succeed, very similar to a Bo Nix. Like, play calling catered toward making things easy on him. Maybe over the course of his career, as you fix some of those mechanical things, maybe he becomes better throwing off platform. If he does that, then, maybe he becomes like an upper tier starter, but this dude's never going to be a superstar. But because NFL franchises are so thirsty for any sort of quarterback that can maybe succeed, they're probably going to take him in the first round. And I'm going to come back on that Friday, April 25th, and be like, oh, whoever the general manager of fill-in-the-blank team is that just took Jackson Dart yesterday, they're probably going to get fired. Because Jackson Dart, taking him in the first round, that is a decision that will get you fired. Next guy on the list, Quinn Ewers. The talent's cool. I love the talent. I do. But he's probably a backup. Quinn Ewers is the highest rated high school recruit ever when he originally committed to Ohio State. He's uber talented. I have talked about Quinn Ewers arguably too much. Okay, so I think most of you know where I stand with him. I really like him. The Colts took him in the 3rd round. I would be excited. Okay, he can make every throw. He's a lot like these other quarterbacks. He doesn't have a great arm. He's not an insane athlete or anything, but he can play quarterback. Okay, he put up really great numbers when he was at Texas. The dude's tough. The one thing that is concerning is the durability. Ewers overcame not one, but 2 shoulder injuries, while playing at Texas. He tore his oblique this last year, played through it because the dude's just tough. Okay, and despite the injuries, he went 27-9 as a starter. Led the program to the college football playoff in 2024 and 2025. This dude's a winner. That's really what I like about him. He's got just this nice presence about him. He's confident, but it's not over the top. I just really like him as a quarterback. I do. But look, there are obviously concerns. If there weren't concerns, then he wouldn't be the guy who's probably going to be the 4th or 5th quarterback off the board in the upcoming NFL draft. And a lot of my concerns, I can't even pinpoint. It just seems like everyone's smarter than me when it comes to evaluating quarterbacks has a different thing that they don't like about Quinn Ewers. Pocket presence, not great. There's not a lot of great, good arm, good accuracy, but nothing great. He's not super mobile. He's not really mobile at all. And in an NFL where the offensive lines get worse and worse every year because teams remove, full padded practices more and more every single year, offensive lines I think we're going to see them continue to deteriorate a little bit. And if you can't move in the NFL, which, I'm not saying that, Quinn Ewers is basically playing out of a wheelchair back there, but, he's not going to run a 4.5 or a 4.6 even. He's going to run a 4.8 maybe. And if you can't do that, I think it's much tougher to succeed in the NFL. This next guy, though, doesn't run a 4.8. He doesn't. Jalen Milroe is Anthony Richardson with more experience. We're going to have Kevin Potts on here in about 10 minutes to talk about the NFL draft. I want to know what the difference is between Jalen Milroe and Anthony Richardson. I do. Jalen Milroe, dude's a freak athlete who actually has like some successful college numbers. So he redshirts in 2021, is the backup in 2022, played in 8 games to in mop-up duty. Okay, 2023, he earns the starting role after almost giving it away. And then against South Florida, he earns it back. Ends up taking Alabama to the college football playoff semifinal. Ended the season with 2,800 passing yards, 23 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, while completing 66% of his passes. For reference, Anthony Richardson only completed 50% of his passes when he was at Florida. Jalen Milroe also ran for 531 yards and 12 touchdowns, was named second team All-SEC. And then this last year, he returns as the starter, throws for 2,800 yards, 16 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, completed 64% of his passes, ran for 726 yards and 20 touchdowns. Okay, so the dude is a freak athlete, runs like a gazelle, can throw the ball over those mountains, to quote the great movie that is Napoleon Dynamite. But he has to develop as a passer. Sounds to me like this guy should be the number 4 overall pick. His struggles are obvious. Like they are. Like you could just watch one game and you're like, oh man, that throw was awful. Like why would you make that throw? How do you miss that throw? You're gonna ask both of those questions throughout the course of watching one game of Jalen Milroe. But as obvious as his struggles are, his gifts are just as obvious. You'll watch him escape the pocket, move into his right, throw it on the run at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And then you're like, geez, that's really good. And then 3 plays later, Alabama will run some sort of, read option. He'll keep it, and then he'll bust like a 70-yard touchdown run. Like this dude is so talented, but the accuracy is pretty erratic. Throw it behind receivers, throw it to the wrong shoulder, all those things. His decision-making, not great. It's not great. He forces throws. There are moments where it's like, I think that he looked at that receiver the entire time and he predetermined where he was going to go with the football. And when you do that, when you put the ball in danger on throws like that, then that's brutal. Like that's not a good thing. Also, hand size, very important in the NFL. Apparently, Jalen Milroe has small hands. That matters. Not smart. Oh, yeah, I am smart enough because when it rains and the ball's wet and NFL football is very different from a college football, just the grip and the way that the ball is shaped, like they are different. And so hand size, like it does matter. Apparently his hands are so small that apparently like that could be a legitimate deal breaker for some teams. And so I am very intrigued to kind of see what he looks like. Like I said, I can't wait to have Kevin Potts on here in about, 7 minutes. Yeah, about 7 minutes. And one of my first questions for him is going to be, what is the difference between Jalen Milroe and Anthony Richardson? That is where we are going to start the conversation, because for me, like that is the biggest mystery of this, quarterback evaluation stuff. Okay, I'm also going to ask him who he thinks the Colts are going to take with the 14th pick. I'm pretty sure it's going to be Jahad Campbell, linebacker out of Alabama. But we'll see. Them not bringing back EJ Speed has really kind of solidified that thought process for me. So Kevin Potts he's set to join the show here in about 5 minutes. We'll run through all these quarterbacks. Cam Ward going to be is very likely going to be the number 1 overall pick. Shedeur Sanders, if he went to the Browns, I wouldn't be surprised. If he went to the Giants, I wouldn't be surprised. If he fell past that, I also wouldn't be surprised. I don't really know what's going to happen with him. Can't wait to get Kevin Potts' thoughts on everything about all of these quarterbacks, and he's joining the show when we come back here in about 5 minutes.
do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. Maybe you're listening via that Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you get your apps. You can listen to me. You can listen to Dan right there. It's good stuff. If you want more from me, you can check out my other YouTube channel. My take is joined now by the one and only Kevin Potts, NFL draft specialist. Kevin, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm good. It's officially the month of the draft. I'm excited for it to get here, but I also have 1,000 things still left to do over the next couple of weeks.
I bet, because you go through every prospect. You can find all of the breakdowns on literally every draft prospect over at the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdown Substack. If there's a guy you have a question about, that is the place to go. And I want to start you off with a question that I've been dying to ask you. You ready?
Absolutely.
Who takes snaps at tight end first, Jalen Milroe or Anthony Richardson?
Anthony Richardson, because Milroe's going to take running back snaps.
Fair enough. With Milroe, this is something that I've been trying to figure out. I think I know the answer. Anthony Richardson goes number 4 overall 2 years ago because he's this big athlete who has just all this potential and all this kind of stuff. Even though we barely saw him play, he played, I think, 13 games at Florida where he completed 50% of his passes. And then you have Jalen Milroe, who is smaller than Richardson is. But like I've seen him complete 66% of his passes before in like a full season. I've seen him actually like win games, and I still have all of the extra stuff that he brings with his athleticism. Like what is the difference between Anthony Richardson going 4th overall and Jalen Milroe being like a 3rd or 4th round pick?
For me, it's 2 things. First one was pocket presence. One of the reasons I really liked Richardson coming out, why a lot of people did, is even when he was missing throws or things weren't going right, he felt like he was going through the process correctly of going through his reads, stepping in the pocket, and delivering the ball. He also, when he did miss, it was generally safe misses. He didn't put the ball in harm's way as much as you'd kind of expect with a guy with scattershot accuracy. With Milroe, he is far more of a one-and-tuck runner. If he feels any sort of pressure, he's going to bail and run, justifiably so because he is a special athlete. He also puts the ball in harm's way a lot. He's fumbled a lot in his career, thrown a lot of interceptions. So there's more of a risk factor with Milroe's profile is why I personally have him lower than Richardson. And then the other part of it just is for the media, we've seen more of him. And sometimes when you have more snaps and you have more games, it's easier to pick you apart. There are more bad moments for Milroe because, like you said, he's played a lot of games. He started in 1. That means you've had some bad moments like the Oklahoma game this year that we can really tear apart. Whereas a Richardson, it's what's in the box. It could be anything. It could be a boat with the skill set, and it's a little easier to project when you have less bad moments to pick apart sometimes.
That makes sense. That was part of my thought process as well, because like you said, like you don't know what Anthony Richardson is, and that excites people always. And yeah, so I was just kind of curious your thoughts on that. Joined by Kevin Potts, writer of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdown Substack, talking about mainly the quarterbacks coming out in this draft class. What are your quarterback rankings?
Perfect. I just finished my top 10 last night, so I can read these off. I have Cam Ward as my number 1. He is in a tier by himself. Shooter Sanders is my number 2. He is in a tier 2 by himself. And then I have Jackson Dart at 3 out of Ole Miss, Tyler Shuck out of Louisville at 4, Jalen Milroe at 5, Will Howard of Ohio State at 6, Kyle McCord out of Syracuse at 7, Dylan Gabriel of Oregon at 8, Curtis Rourke out of Indiana at 9, and Quinn Ewers out of Texas at 10. Basically, after you get past Jackson Dart, all those guys have late 3rds to early 6th round grades and are mostly backup grades. So I only view 3 guys as potential starters, and it's mostly just Ward and Sanders at the top.
Okay. So, oh man, a lot to unpack there. Jeez. Okay. who did you say that you had fourth?
Tyler Shuck out of Louisville.
Tyler Shuck, really athletic dude, good arm, right? I'm trying to remember. I gotta be honest. I didn't watch a ton of Louisville this year.
Yeah, so Shuck's the one who is basically getting ready for his pension. He's 26 years old. He was back in the 2018 class, I believe. He was at Oregon when Justin Herbert was still there. So he's been around for a long time. He was a really high recruit. He ended up going to Texas Tech. He suffered a season-ending injury in all 3 of his seasons at Texas Tech. It's really unfortunate. Louisville this past year was basically his first year that he was really able to do anything and actually start a full season. But really good arm. He is the exact measurables that you want for a quarterback, almost 6'5", 220. He can move a little bit. He's got accuracy at all 3 levels of the field. But for a 26-year-old quarterback who's basically in his second year of starting, there's still work to be done as a processor. And when you have a major injury history, that's why you find him as more of a third-round type of guy, even if the talent's pretty good.
Okay, that makes sense. Why is Quinn Ewers so low? You have him last. Like that was kind of jarring for me.
Yeah, I don't really know if he does much well, to be perfectly honest. I think his overall physical profile is a little overrated. That comes from the team he's the quarterback for and the stars next to his name from high school. I think his arm talent is closer to solid than it is great. I think he's an average athlete. And I think he benefited a lot statistically from playing in a fantastic Texas offense that did a lot to help him. And anytime you saw him have to get out of structure, operate as a true drop back passer like he's going to the next level, I thought it all really fell apart. He also has an injury history. He has missed time in all 3 years that he's played. Yes, you can attribute some of that to maybe some of his struggles, but if you can't consistently be healthy, I'm not really going to give you points there. And I think it's a common theme for me for a lot of these quarterbacks is I came away really impressed with a lot of these college offensive coordinators and what they do to protect their quarterback at that level.
Okay, that makes sense. Joined by Kevin Potts, writer of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdowns Substack. So, who's the quarterback that you like more than you should?
For me, it's probably Kyle McCord out of Syracuse. And the reason I shouldn't like him as much is because physically he's not an NFL quarterback. He is about average size, he's below average arm, and he is a below average athlete. But watching his tape, he just does a lot of stuff well. He's incredibly smart. He is really tough. He transferred obviously from Ohio State after winning a lot of games, but people thought he held them back. Went to Syracuse, broke the ACC single season passing record. I thought he looked a lot more comfortable as a true drop back passer. He's more of a short to intermediate guy, very accurate, gets the ball out in time with anticipation. And I like it because he's doing the things that you want to see from a good quarterback. Unfortunately, he is just a player that doesn't have the physical skill set, I think, to project as a starter. But I think he's going to be a really good backup for a long time, and a team that is looking for a good backup that works well in a timing system, maybe like Miami, a team where their quarterback doesn't always stay healthy. I think he's going to be that guy who's a 10-year backup and has a lot of spot starts where fan base talk themselves into thinking maybe he's a little bit better than he is because he does so many things well at the quarterback position.
Okay, all of that makes sense. Is he a potential Brock Purdy type where he shows up and then he winds up, being like a 5th or 6th round pick, and then all of a sudden he's like a pretty decent starter, or does he not do? I know you said that he does a lot of things well. Is that in the cards for him?
I think that's the hope. And if you are going to pick a player from this class that is the round 5 guy that ends up being a starter, he would be my bet just because I think he's so smart. My comp for him is actually Cooper Rush. Obviously, that's not even close to Brock Purdy, but that's a player who's been around for a long time. He's started a good amount of games for Dallas, and when they have talent around him, he hasn't been amazing, but he's kept that offense on track, and they've looked functional when he's operated it. So I do think, Brock Purdy's probably the highest of highs he could get to. If I would bet on a guy on day 3 to be a sneaky starter for a couple of years, it would be McCord because I think he's mentally equipped to do so.
Joined by Kevin Potts, writer of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdown Substack, talking about the quarterbacks coming out that are going to be drafted here in 3 weeks from tomorrow, which is crazy. So these top 2 quarterbacks, Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, I'm just so fascinated I wish I could sit down with every general manager and just get their like unfiltered thoughts on these guys, because I really like Cam Ward. I like Shooter Sanders probably way more than I should. And so I'm just kind of curious. And I was thinking about this last night because, as you know, Kevin, I love the NBA, and like every number one overall pick isn't made equal. And so I'm just kind of curious, is Cam Ward a normal number one overall pick, or is he someone who's just a number one overall pick because this quarterback draft class it isn't very good and someone has to go number one?
I'd say if we took 10 NFL drafts, he'd probably be the number one pick in like 3 or so. It's not the deepest draft, and I do think that's the big reason for him being at number one. But I don't think it is crazy to put him at number one. I think in a lot of draft classes, he would be a top 5, top 10 pick. I think 9 out of 10 classes, you get him up there because he still is a very good quarterback prospect. But I don't think that in most drafts he gets number one, just because I view him more as like a late first round type of quarterback that's going to get bumped up. For me, if we compare him to last year's class, he is in the tier of where J.J. McCarthy and Michael Penix were, and they were, right around pick 10 is where they went. But in a class where there really is no other quarterback, you obviously get bumped up and into that number one slot. But I don't think it would be like a Kenny Pickett going number one. I think he's significantly better than that type of prospect and that type of QB draft class.
We've seen this trend really just last year, but I do think we're going to see it more and more, where these quarterbacks who've played college football for 5 years and have like 60 starts or just show up in the NFL and they figure it out pretty quickly. Do you think what is the likelihood we see that with Cam Ward this year?
Ward's probably, I still think it's going to take him a year, because even though he is older, he hasn't been playing quote unquote actual quarterback for a long time. He was a triple option quarterback in high school. And Incarnate Ward, they didn't really want a real offense. It wasn't really until Miami that he actually started doing more of a true drop back stuff. I think he's really, really smart. I think he's a good processor, and I do think he's going to figure it out quickly. But for him, he just needs to learn how to stop with the risk taking as much as he does. And obviously, it's part of what makes him special, but he puts the ball in harm's way too much. And I think that's going to be the biggest learning curve for him. I think he'll make plays, but I just think there's going to be a lot of mistakes as he learns the NFL speed. I do think there are a lot of guys in this class that are older that could probably play at a reasonable level pretty quickly, kind of like you mentioned, but it's hard for Ward, I think, at pick 1 to live up to what we expect from the first overall pick that quickly, given the type of prospect I think he is.
Joined by Kevin Potts, writer of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdown Substacks, talking about Cam Ward. Will he be better than Daniel Jones and or Anthony Richardson this season?
Yes, I think so.
Great. Love to hear that. I'm sure every Colts fan was like, can't wait for the season after hearing that. Is it just because of his ability to make plays after things break down? Is that what kind of gives him the edge over, guys like Richardson and Daniel Jones, who are prone to making mistakes, but just aren't as good when the structure of things breaks down?
Yeah, I think he's just more natural and fluid processor and athlete. Even if he's going to make some mistakes like any rookie would, I think that when he gets forced off the spot, has to create, or even if he's operating within the pocket, I think he just probably has a better feel for space that's going to give him a higher baseline. And I think there's also a little bit of he's coming in without baggage. Richardson, Daniel Jones have been in the league for a few years now, and they've had their struggles, their ups and downs with that current scheme. I just generally think sometimes that wears on guys mentally, and we've seen their struggles. I think with Ward coming in with the clean slate and a profile that is above average, that I think it's probably easier to project him to having a better year, because I haven't seen him fall apart like those other two have.
That's totally fair. So the other guy that the other quarterback that people are very interested in is Shooter Sanders. And like I said at the top of this, I love him. It's a good thing I'm not a general manager, because I might take him number 1. I think he's tough. I think he's accurate. I like that his dad played in the NFL, just because I think guys who have parents that have played in the NFL or the NBA or whatever just figure out the locker room a little bit quicker. They understand the process of how to be a professional a little bit quicker than these other guys. What are kind of your thoughts on Shooter Sanders after going through all of the tape over the last 4 years?
Yeah, well, I think you nailed the positives. The mental makeup for him, I think he's extremely tough. He's extremely smart. He's played a lot of football or 50 starts in his career. You get the same player you get from the first snap to the last snap. Even if he has been sacked 45 times and they are losing by 30, he will still go out there and give you the exact same effort. He has some of the best accuracy in this class. He makes those all three levels. I really think when things are going right in an offense, he is going to really make it hum. My problem with Sanders and why I have him second rounder and he probably won't be a top 50 player for me is I just think physically he just has a limited ceiling. I think he is an average athlete. I think his arm is fine. And then when you get forced out of the structure that he plays so well in, it becomes more of an issue because he doesn't really throw very well off his back foot. He panics under pressure a little bit more. He can't really escape and create. So I do think he is a starting caliber quarterback, and I do think he could fall somewhere in the Brock Purdy to Tagovailoa range if things go well. It's hard for me to see him ever being a top 10 quarterback. And when you're talking about picking a guy at, say, pick 3 or pick 2, having that limited ceiling is kind of where I balk at where his draft stock is anticipating in this class.
Do you think he goes number 2 or number 3 overall?
I still think he's going number 3. I know the Giants brought in Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson, but I think we've seen, especially last year with the Falcons, that really doesn't mean that much. They both weren't given a ton of money. And I think if you like Shooter Sanders and you're the Giants, those two guys aren't stopping you from taking him. If you like him as a quarterback, you're taking him at number 3. And I think for a front office and a coaching staff, it might be a little desperate. I think those quarterback signings they made were to protect themselves in case Sanders went 2, and then they can take him at 3 and have 3 options to try and win as many games as possible so they keep their job.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it, which, Brian Daboll is a great coach, and I know he's a great coach because he won a playoff game with Daniel Jones of all options. And I think that for Shooter Sanders, like that's the kind of guy that you want him to go play for, who's going to do a really good job of building a good offensive system around him, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously had a history going all the way back to Buffalo and then in New York of working with quarterbacks. Now, Sanders is stylistically a little bit different, but I've always appreciated their offensive infrastructure schematically. Obviously, Malik Neighbors is a really big draw to throw to. It's going to make his life a lot easier. I do have some concerns about the offensive line, especially for a player who really struggles with not taking sacks and protecting his body. But I think as far as going in the top 10, there are worse spots than the Giants. It's just, for me, I do worry if they take him and this team's not good and that whole staff gets fired and he has to restart all over again in his second year. I always just think that's a really tough draw for any rookie quarterback.
Joined by Kevin Potts, writer of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdown Substack, talking about the different quarterbacks available in this draft. So my take on Jackson Dart is that he's going to get someone fired. Like, someone's going to take him in the first round when they probably shouldn't, and he's going to be a fine player, but not good enough to justify being a first-round pick, and some poor general manager and head coach who just got too impatient wind up being fired. How likely is that to happen?
I think it's pretty likely. Now, I think it's pretty likely just with most quarterbacks in general because the hit rate's pretty low. But Jackson Dart really scares me, especially with this news of him starting to creep into the first round. I think he's more of a project than a lot of people give him credit for. I don't think he's that much less of a project than what Jalen Milroe is. Because when you're coming from that Ole Miss offense, like I mentioned with Ewers in Texas, it is not translatable at all to the next level. It is completely structured to work in college, and he runs it really well. If you give him correct reads, he'll get the ball on time. I think he's accurate. I think he's a solid arm. I think his overall athleticism actually gets really underrated in this process. But I do think he's a player that you're going to have to basically teach from the ground up, again, how to play quarterback. And when you take that type of guy in the first round, who has to be taught from the ground up and doesn't have the crazy tools like a Lance or a Richardson does, that's a scary proposition because you don't really have much to rely on, and you're probably going to have to start right away because of your draft position. If you're telling me he's a second or third round pick to the Los Angeles Rams where he's sitting for a year and learning with McVay, I'm very bullish about his prospects. If you're telling me he's going 19 to the Steelers and he's starting week 1, then I think that's where he starts getting people fired.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with him. I like that you said that he's a little bit less of a project than Milroe, but he's still a project because everything I read about him, like they seem like they were pretty similar size. Jackson Dart's mobile and all those things. I think that's a really, really good point about him. Last thing for you, Kevin, and last topic. I don't know if it's going to be the last question. I need to stop saying last question because whenever I say that, I ask 3 more. I think I know who the Colts are going to take at 14, but I'm kind of curious your thoughts. Who do you think that they take there?
Okay, so I've said all draft seasons that I think is going to be Malik Starks. I'm no longer going to do that now that they have added Cam Bynum into the mix. I still think it would still be a really good pick. I think they are going to take Colston Loveland at 14. I know a lot of the Colts fans really want Tyler Warren. I still just don't think he's going to get there to 14. And Loveland is definitely not a consolation prize. I don't have him as high as Warren, and he's a different type of player. I think he's more of a receiving tight end. But I do think his blocking is one of the more underrated aspects of any prospect in this class. I think he's a true Y and can be a difference maker in a team's passing attack. And for a team that has had a huge hole at that end position, and 14 is probably about the sweet spot, I think, for where Loveland can go. I think that match makes a lot of sense.
Joined by Kevin Potts, writer of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdown Substack, talking about who the Colts are going to take at 14. I think they're going to take Jihad Campbell. They let EJ Speed go. They need a linebacker. They need someone who's a little more athletic than what they've had. I think Campbell makes a lot of sense at 14. Is that a reasonable place to take him?
Yeah, I think that'd be a great pick. He is actually right next to Loveland on my big board. They had the exact same grade. So I think that range fits really, really well. I think he is one of the rare first-round linebackers we have had in recent years. I think he's a true off-ball linebacker. I know some people want to move him to edge. I think he should absolutely stick at Mike. His measurables match up really well with Fred Warner, which is obviously a lofty comp. I'm just talking how they measured out. I think he does everything well. He's got athleticism and range as a coverage player. He's willing to take on blocks. He's big and he's strong. For a team, obviously, like you said, that needs a linebacker really bad, I think that would be a totally justifiable pick. Position value be damned for the linebacker at 14. I think he could go higher than 14. So if he's there, I think it'd be a great pick for them.
What is it about him that makes him different than all the other linebackers who didn't earn a round 1 grade?
He knows how to play linebacker at the NFL level. A lot of college linebackers, the game is just taught different. There's a lot more space in college football as a result of the offensive structures and where the hashes are located, where it is a lot of point and shoot. You go and chase a read option. You go and chase a screen in the perimeter. You go chase an RPO slant. But for Campbell, and he's the benefit of him playing with Alabama in the SEC, there's a lot more downhill running game. He has experience taking on climbing linemen at the second level, taking on pullers. And then in addition, he also has that sideline to sideline speed. The Alabama defense also just runs a more complicated coverage structure, more man match stuff where you actually make your linebackers think. So I think he's more experienced doing NFL level roles and responsibilities than basically 99% of college linebackers do coming out.
Okay, that makes sense. Last thing here. So during the NFL Combine, Chris Ballard spoke, and he mentioned that he really likes the middle round offensive linemen in this draft class, which is kind of a thing for Ballard. He loves taking guys in that 3rd, 4th, and 5th round and kind of bringing them along. Who are the offensive linemen that could kind of fall in that range that Colts fans should keep an eye out for?
Yeah, so I agree with Ballard, and I think the theme of this year's class is college tackles moving to guard. So the guys I'd be looking at late 2nd, early 3rd Wyatt Milliam out of West Virginia, Marcus Bowe out of Purdue, and Jonas Savanaia out of Arizona. They're all college tackles. I all think that they are best suited to move into the guard position just because of lack of length and some athleticism. But they're all multi-year starters, good athletes, good size. They just lack a little bit on the edge and are going to get moved inside. So I think those are three names that Colts fans should watch, and a lot of teams should watch. I think a lot of teams are banking on that late day 2 guard run of those former tackles.
Why is arm length so important? Like I've heard it, but Will Campbell, I believe is his name, out of LSU. People have made such a big deal about that because I guess he measured short at the combine, but then he measured at like the length that you want at the LSU Pro Day. And my thing is like, I don't know, he's blocked SEC edge rushers for the last 3 years. I think he's gonna be okay.
Yeah, so the reason people want arm length, particularly at tackle, it's the ability to get first contact. If you have longer arms, when you throw your hands, you usually get to touch a player first, which means you get to control a rep. And for guys with shorter arms, when you don't get that first contact, you end up having to naturally lean over to get that contact. That does is going to disrupt your balance. It causes you to bend at hips. And there are guys who make it at tackle with shorter arms because they have really good balance and they have really good flexibility in their knees. So they're able to drop their weight and kind of counteract that natural lean that comes for shorter arms, which is why you see teams look for tackles that are 33, 34-inch arms. And it's created a benchmark for a lot of these teams where if you just don't check a certain box, we're not going to touch you, because historically guys with this length arm don't translate well at this position. And now it does vary. Like you mentioned, Campbell, he is one of those rare players, I do think, where even though he has short arms, he is so strong through his core and his upper body, and he's so flexible and athletic that he's able to overcome some of those deficiencies at the SEC level. But a lot of these guys in the second and third round don't have the physical ability to counteract their lack of length.
That all makes sense. Kevin, thanks for your time as always, man. Who are the next prospects that you're going to hopefully ride on here soon?
I am running through a lot of these day 2, day 3 safeties, doing Big Ten today. So Lathan Ransom out of Ohio State and Sebastian Castro out of Iowa are the two that I'm getting eyes on today.
Nice. Love it. Kevin, thanks for your time, man. As always, I'm sure we'll have you on several more times before the draft shows up here in about 3 weeks. Thanks, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Always a pleasure.
That is Kevin Potts. You can check him out on Twitter at Kevin Potts 06. Excellent writer. Like I said, just has a ton of information. Anything you want to know about any draft prospect, Kevin is your guy. He writes a ton. It's very easy to read. So make sure you go and check out all of his stuff. Speaking of easy, Pacers play the Hornets tonight, and I can't wait to watch. This is a game that the Pacers should win, but given their history, they won't. I'm going to tell you what the history is when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Unadulterated sports talk with unfiltered takes. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Hopefully you're having a nice week. Wednesday, hump day. Oh, man. Big thanks to Kevin for joining in that last little segment there to talk about the quarterbacks in this year's NFL draft class, how they stack up to Anthony Richardson, what the Colts are going to do with the 14th pick, what Chris Ballard might do in the middle rounds. We covered all of it. It'll be out via podcast later today. But tonight, the Indiana Pacers are 14.5-point favorites over the Charlotte Hornets, who will not have LaMelo Ball in their race to capture the flag. In other words, have the number one overall pick so they can draft Cooper Flagg. And for the game tonight, Benedict Mathurin and Miles Turner have both been upgraded to questionable after missing the game on Monday against the Sacramento Kings. And whenever I watch the Pacers, I think they're fine without Benedict Mathurin, but they need Miles Turner. Like they have to have that guy. Miles Turner makes them significantly better for multiple reasons. I really enjoy watching Thomas Bryant play basketball just because like he just plays so incredibly hard, and like that really matters. It does. Okay, especially in a league where guys don't play hard every single night. But with that being said, Thomas Bryant is not a real center. 7-footers make Thomas Bryant look like he's 6'6". He's just not tall enough. He's not. He plays hard. He can space the floor because he can shoot it. Like I said, he competes, but they're missing size whenever Miles Turner doesn't play. Miles Turner gives them a real 7-footer on the floor. He's a good rim protector. Okay, I know he gets a ton of crap because he's not a great rebounder, but they need him because he's arguably the best rebounder on this team. Have you seen the Pacers try to rebound when Miles Turner does not play? It's brutal. Miles Turner has missed 9 games this year. The Pacers were out-rebounded in every single one of those games except for 2. They were out-rebounded by 10 or more twice. They were out-rebounded by 20 or more once. In the 9 games he's missed this season, like that's brutal. They need him. They need his rebounding. They need his rim protection. And most importantly, they just need him for depth in the front court, especially whenever these playoffs roll around. Because, like I said, Thomas Bryant, good player. Don't know if I want to be giving that guy like 25 playoff minutes. I don't. I know that. I don't. So Miles Turner, hopefully he's back and healthy and ready to go tonight. He was sick on Monday. Benedict Mathurin, I'm liking him less and less. Love his demeanor. Plays hard. He's got some dog in him. Like he's not afraid of any moment that's thrown his way, but he just doesn't move the ball well at all. And that problem, because that's what it is, just leaves something to be desired from him. When he's on the floor, it seems like he doesn't fit. The ball sticks in his hands way too much. I don't know if you've seen Little Giants, but there's a scene, where they're playing that final football game, and this kid who plays wide receiver who can't catch, like dips his hands in tar before they're about to like throw it deep to him. And then he's in the huddle and he breaks the huddle and he claps his hands and his hands get stuck together and he can't really pull them apart. Like Benedict Mathurin sticks his hands in tar before every offensive possession because he catches the ball and it just stops. It does. And like it's not always a bad thing because he's a good one-on-one scorer. I like his ability to score one-on-one. Okay, he can bail you out, which is a really nice luxury to have in the NBA. To have a guy when there's 5 seconds left on the shot clock who can just go get a bucket. But he ruins the offense a lot. He just completely blows it up by holding on to the basketball for too long. If he didn't play tonight, I'd be fine with it because the Pacers don't need him. Their offense is fine without him. Okay? And I'm not some anti-isolation basketball guy. Like, I love one-on-one. It's part of why I enjoy watching the NBA. You just see it more in that league than you do with college basketball. And you see it within the structure of the Pacers offense all the time. They create space for Pascal Siakam to isolate in like the mid-post area, 12 to 15 feet from the bucket all the time. And they do that because he's a good one-on-one scorer. When he isolates, though, it's quick and it feels like it's within the structure of the offense. Like he catches it. There is no wait 5 seconds to figure out what I'm going to do. It's catch. I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to post this guy. I'm going to spin off. I'm going to pull up for a jump shot. Like he clearly has a plan before he catches the basketball. With Benedict Mathurin, it doesn't feel that way. It feels like he just ad-libs. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to go one-on-one here. Sorry, guys. Well, let me do my thing really quickly. That's what it feels like. Whenever he runs that one-on-one, he stops the offense, assesses whether or not he can score on this guy. It takes him like 5 seconds to do it. Then he either tries to score or he starts moving the ball again. The issue is when you do that, the ball movement obviously stops. The ball's momentum stops. The defense resets. You look, it's like, oh crap, we have 8 seconds left on the shot clock to figure out how we're going to create this open look. And it's just annoying because the Pacers are at their best when the ball moves. And something that I've noticed with, the Pacers and the Nuggets, two teams that I think pass the ball excellently, but more importantly, their star players are very willing passers. And when that happens, your role players are more willing to give the ball up because they know that they are going to touch the basketball again. And for some reason, that just doesn't apply to Benedict Mathurin. This is his third year with this team. He's played with Tyrese Halliburton for the last 2.5 years. You would think that by now he would understand that he's going to get the ball back. He's going to get plenty of touches. Just move and run the offense. And eventually you're going to get open. And when you do, make a shot. And if you're not open, then keep it moving. Let's go. It's frustrating. It's annoying. I like Mathurin, but he's just not good enough to justify stopping the offense as much as he does. And because of that, I wouldn't be surprised if the Pacers moved him either this offseason or at some point early next year. I love the NBA. Love talking about it. I got a video up on my other channel. My take is, if you want to go check that out, talking about Curry going for 50 and Jokic logging a 60-point triple-double and Giannis going for 37 points and 11 assists, because last night was just a great night in the NBA. But we're 3 weeks away from the NFL draft. I want to talk a little bit of Colts and just what their draft should look like and what it's going to look like. We're going to get into that when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Hornets in today's sports world. It's here. The real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show. Hopefully you're having a nice week. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on Twitter, _ Jonathan Smith. If you would like to follow me there, maybe you're watching or listening, via that Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. You can also listen to the Dan Dockett Show on that app, which is on from noon to 3. You can hear me there as well. And if that's not enough of me for you, you can also check out my other YouTube channel. My Take Is. Just started it. A lot of good NBA stuff over there. So if you like hoops, there you go. As much as I love hoops, basketball, college basketball, we got the Final Four coming up on Saturday. Can't wait. Joe Jackson is going to join me tomorrow, and we're going to talk about the Final Four. We're going to talk about the transfer portal, guys worth keeping your eye on, and all of those things, okay? But the NFL draft is 3 weeks away. The Indianapolis Colts do have the 14th overall pick, and what they do is going to be so incredibly important because whenever I look at the roster, they've made moves in the right direction this offseason. Like, even the people who hate Chris Ballard more than everyone else who hates Chris Ballard, like they have to admit that. Like, he has done a pretty decent job so far this offseason. I know that the Daniel Jones signing was a little underwhelming, but given the cap situation and the fact that the Colts wanted to add other starters at other positions, I just don't think that they could have afforded to do much more than Daniel Jones. Aside from that, though, Cam Bynum, Javarius Ward, they let go of EJ Speed, which I think was a good move. Chris Ballard has done a pretty decent job. And now we've got the NFL draft coming up, which is great. We get to hear people tell us how great he is at drafting, and it's going to be wonderful. And with the 14th pick, I feel pretty confident in saying that Chris Ballard's probably going to go defense. I think he's going to take Jahad Campbell, linebacker out of Alabama, very athletic, all of those things. Wouldn't surprise me if he went edge rusher because there's a plethora of edge rushers that are really good and that are going to be available and worthy of a first-round pick when the Colts are up with that 14th pick. And, that's fine. Defense is important, especially when you're going to have a quarterback like Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson. You're probably not going to score a ton of points, so you need a defense that can make plays and force turnovers and do all of those very, very important things. The other thing that you need, though, when you have quarterbacks like that who, aren't going to score a ton of points because they just aren't super polished, or in Daniel Jones's case, just aren't very good, you have to have playmakers. And that's why, many people are advocating for the Colts to take a tight end with the 14th pick. Kevin Potts thinks that they should take and will take Colston Loveland, tight end out of Michigan, who's a really good player. He's not Tyler Warren. But Tyler Warren's probably not going to last until the 14th pick. So a lot of people are like, Colston Loveland, solid tight end option out of Michigan. That's a guy that the Colts could and should probably take with that 14th overall pick. I just don't think that's enough, though. One of the biggest issues that I've had with Chris Ballard during this era is the lack of playmaking. You look around the NFL, and it's just never been easier to find a great wide receiver or just a great pass catcher, whether that's a tight end or a wide receiver or whatever. And during the entire tenure, last 8 years of Chris Ballard, the Colts haven't had that. When was the last time the Colts had a legitimately great receiver? I'm sure some people are going to throw out the name T.Y. Hilton. Was he great? I don't think he was. I think he was really good. But I don't think he was great. And that's the thing with the Colts that I really hope that they're able to figure out. Even if it's just, hey, in the third round, let's take a big 6'4" wide receiver who runs like a 4.4 and can bench press a truck and can deadlift a truck filled with concrete. Even if that's what they decided to do, I think I'd be fully on board for that, because the Colts have to have someone on the outside, or just any sort of pass catcher, that can help out whoever winds up playing quarterback for the Colts this season, whether it's Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones. Playing quarterback's made a lot easier when you have a wide receiver that you can just rely on. Like, a large part of why Drew Lock tore the Colts up last year in that, week 17 game, it's because he had Malik Neighbors, this big rookie receiver out of LSU who just caught everything. Just makes your life so much easier. And I think that the Colts have done a good job of building a defense, potentially, well, obviously you have to wait and see, that your offense can trust. Last year, the Colts defense was so bad that if they didn't score, it's like, oh, geez, probably going to go down 7 here. That wasn't the reality of it, but that's what it felt like. Like, the defense just wasn't trustworthy. And I do think Chris Ballard has done a good job of making the defense more trustworthy over the course of the offseason. If he takes Jahad Campbell with that 14th overall pick, then he'll have just bolstered it even more so. Defense is cool, but the offense has to score at some point. And I'm sure that there's trust in the building that, we got Shane Steichen, mastermind. Yeah, that's not enough. You need really good players. And while the defense has added some really good players, maybe Leatu Latu develops into one this year. We've been over the pressure rate's really high, and for some reason he just can't record a sack. But there are things going in the right direction for him. Maybe he comes back and he ends up being a really good player for the Colts this year, and he logs 12 sacks. That'd be awesome. That would be great. And then, the defense would really be trustworthy. The offense, though, it needs revamping. It does. Offensive line's getting older. Quarterback is, pretty decent chance that you're going to have the worst quarterback in the NFL this year, unless Aiden O'Connell finds a place to be a starter. They just don't have very many playmakers, which you have to have when your quarterback isn't very good. It's amazing. Tua Tagovailoa looked like a bust as the number 5 overall pick. And the Dolphins are like, hey, let's go get Tyreek Hill and let's take Jalen Waddle with the 7th pick in the NFL draft. And all of a sudden, Tua looked pretty good. Made the playoffs. People really enjoyed watching that fast-paced offense. It was cool. It was fun. It was entertaining. And then you look at the Colts, and it's like where's that move? Where is the move to ensure that Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones, whoever ends up playing quarterback, doesn't fail this year? Because Alec Pierce is a good wide receiver, but he really only did one thing last year, and that's run by everyone and have Anthony Richardson throw the ball as far as he can. Josh Downs probably has more to him than what we've seen, but let's be honest, he's a small guy who runs fast. A lot of what he's going to do is going to be underneath. Michael Pittman Jr. is a really good possession receiver, but he's not going to, make sparks with anything. Adonai Mitchell, that experiment hasn't gone very well. And so while I do think that the Colts are going to take a linebacker with that 14th pick, whoever they end up taking to play tight end, probably in the second round, is going to have to be able to come in and be a legitimate playmaker right off the rip. I don't care if they can block. I get it. Like you want your tight end to be able to block. That way you can disguise formations better and all that kind of stuff. I don't care. I just want a dude who can help Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones, whoever ends up being the starting quarterback. I just want a guy who helps them be the best version of them. Whether that's Mason Taylor, Harold Fannin Jr., whoever it is, whoever the Colts take at tight end, because they're going to take one. Whoever it is, I just hope that they can help this offense go to another level, because it feels slow and old, and that is not what you want your offense to feel like. Hopefully you enjoyed the Real Jonathan Smith show today. I'll be back on the air tomorrow from 10 to noon. I'm sure I'll put something up on the My Take Is YouTube page at some point today as well. So make sure you go subscribe to that. Subscribe to Indie Sports Ticket as well. The Dan Dockett Show comes your way here in about 5 minutes.